My stepfather, Jeffrey Morrison, installed a new security camera pointed directly at my window. At first, I thought he was protecting me. Then I saw the footage on his phone. He smiled when I confronted him. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't just creepy. He was dangerous. 2 years later, he's locked away, and I finally sleep without fear. Back when I trusted Jeffrey, I believed his warnings about our neighbor Thomas. He said Thomas was creepy, dangerous even. I nodded, too scared to question him. But things started changing. Jeffrey began locking my door from the outside at night, always with an excuse. My mom said he was being protective. I remember hugging my teddy bear, wondering why safety felt so much like prison. That was the first time I doubted his love. He used to bring me ice cream after yelling at Mom, like sugar could erase screams. Once, he found me talking to Thomas over the fence and dragged me inside by the arm, whispering threats. My mom said I misunderstood him. I tried to believe her, but Thomas gave me a small book once, a journal, and told me to write what scared me. I did, every night. That journal became my only truth. Jeffrey's touches got bolder. His hugs lingered, his accidental walks in on me changing became frequent. I told my school counselor, but she called my mom instead of the police. Mom said I was hormonal. I felt sick. One day, Thomas slipped a note in my mailbox. Write everything, I believe you. I cried that night, not because I was scared, but because someone finally believed me. Still, I wondered, would anyone ever actually protect me? Jeffrey caught me writing in my journal once. He ripped out pages, screamed that I was making him look bad. I backed into a corner, shaking. He left bruises, small but enough. I showed my teacher, who reported it. CPS came, but Jeffrey smiled through the whole visit. He said I had nightmares, a vivid imagination. Nathaniel, the social worker, lingered. He asked questions others didn't, but could one man against Jeffrey change anything at all? After CPS left, Jeffrey locked my journal in a safe, said if I lied again, he'd make it real. I didn't sleep that night. But Thomas knocked on our back window, whispered to me. He handed me a small recorder, just in case, he said. I hid it inside my teddy bear. That moment gave me hope, but also fear. If Jeffrey ever found it, I knew he'd destroy it. And maybe me with it. Mom started blaming me for their fights, said I was tearing the family apart. I screamed back for the first time. Jeffrey smirked like he'd won. That night, I recorded him yelling, threatening, promising to fix me. The audio wasn't perfect, but it was something. Nathaniel returned for a follow-up. I handed him the recorder in a shaking fist. He listened, jaw tightening. We'll need more, he said quietly. I wanted to believe that meant help. Nathaniel began visiting more, asking questions when Jeffrey wasn't around. He even talked to Thomas. Mom warned me not to say too much, said they'd take me away. But being taken away sounded like freedom. Thomas gave Nathaniel my backup journal, the one I hid in his shed. Still, I worried Jeffrey had friends in high places. Would any of this matter, or would I end up silenced, just another kid no one really listened to? The morning of the court hearing, Jeffrey paced like a caged animal. He told Mom he'd take care of things, if the judge didn't. I stayed silent. In court, Judge Patricia Hawkins listened as Patricia Chen played my audio. Jeffrey's face contorted with rage. She's lying, he shouted. I stood, voice trembling but loud. You lock me in, you watch me sleep, that's not love. The room went quiet. I saw the jury's eyes shift. Truth had a sound, and it was mine. Jeffrey's attorney tried to paint me as unstable. Said I'd been acting out, since age 12. Nathaniel stood next. This girl risked everything to be heard, he said, placing the recorder on the evidence table. Then came Alexander Thomas's daughter. Her voice shook as she described how Jeffrey had once cornered her 2 years before. My heart broke for her, and it burned brighter. We weren't isolated stories. We were a pattern, a truth too big to ignore. That courtroom wasn't just for justice, it was for all of us. After court, Jeffrey stormed through the hallway, eyes blazing. This isn't over, he hissed, lunging toward me. Security grabbed him before he reached me, but I'd already stepped back, fists clenched. I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. Patricia Chen approached, her tone calm but firm. You did everything right. My knees buckled. Thomas caught me before I hit the floor. In his arms, I felt safe not because he was strong, but because he believed me. That belief saved me more than locks ever could. Mom didn't speak to me after the hearing. She packed a bag and left with Jeffrey's brother. I watched her disappear down the sidewalk. Thomas offered to let me stay until a placement was found. Nathaniel agreed. That night, I stared at the stars from the guest room window, the journal in my lap. My chest ached not just from what I'd survived, but from what I lost. But I'd spoken, I'd fought, and even if my mother walked away, I finally hadn't. Just when I thought the worst was over, we got word Jeffrey filed an emergency appeal, claiming evidence tampering. His lawyer blamed Thomas for manipulating me. The judge paused his sentence pending review. I panicked. Nathaniel pressed on, gathering more statements. Patricia Chen swore they'd fight it, but doubt crept in. What if they believed him? What if his manipulation worked again? I clutched my journal tighter that night, praying my words still mattered in the chaos. A week later, a news clip surfaced. Jeffrey, caught on a home security cam from another neighborhood, yelling threats at another girl. Her name was Elise. She'd moved away years ago. Patricia tracked her down. Elise agreed to testify. That video hit the media. Suddenly, my face wasn't alone. We were many. Elise, Alexander, me. We weren't isolated. We were a chain of truth finally tightening. The appeal crumbled. This time, the justice system chose us. The neighborhood's tone shifted. Kids whispered less. Parents looked uneasy around Thomas. Some still doubted him. But Ruth Grant, our elderly neighbor, hosted a block gathering. She read parts of Elise's statement aloud, eyes sharp. Silence let him thrive, she said. People murmured apologies to Thomas, some even hugged me. That night, I felt something new community. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Maybe healing didn't mean forgetting. Maybe it meant being seen and heard, finally. One evening, I found Thomas in his shed, staring at a broken lock. Someone tried to break in, he said. My heart raced. Nathaniel advised staying somewhere else for a few nights. We moved to Ruth's. 2 nights later, police caught Jeffrey's brother trespassing armed. He claimed he was just checking in, but it was clear. Jeffrey's grip hadn't vanished. We filed charges. Security increased, and I remembered something Thomas once told me. Predators hate light, so we kept shining it. Thomas installed new cameras this time for protection, not surveillance. I helped. He let me choose where to place them. It felt symbolic, reclaiming the lens once used against me. At school, rumors faded. Elise joined a group chat with me and Alexander. We called it the Unmuted. We didn't always talk trauma. We shared playlists, dumb jokes, but when one of us needed to vent, the others answered. That kind of bond. It's louder than any scream I ever kept silent. Patricia Chen met with me after school one day. We want you to speak at the Juvenile Trauma Summit, she said. I froze, speaking, publicly, but then I remembered that courtroom. That recorder, that trembling voice. Okay, I said, unsure but willing. I practiced with Ruth, who cried after my 3rd run through. You've lived it, now let them learn from it. It wasn't just my story anymore. It was a lifeline for someone still trapped in silence. The day of the summit, my hands shook as I stepped onto the stage. The room was filled teens, teachers, survivors. I held my old journal like armor. My name is Dakota de Griffin. I began, voice stronger than I expected. I told them about Jeffrey, about being believed, and about writing truth when no one listened. I ended with this. Silence doesn't protect us, it protects them. Applause erupted. Not polite claps, fierce, loud, defiant. I stood taller than ever. After the summit, a girl around my age approached me, eyes glassy. I'm still living with him, she whispered. My heart cracked. I handed her a hotline card, then said, write it down, hide it if you must, your story matters. She nodded, tears falling. I hugged her gently. That night, I realized impact isn't measured by media or trials. It's that one girl, one voice who finally dares to speak. I wasn't alone, and now, neither was she. Alexander found an old flash drive, hidden inside a hollow book in Thomas's house. It was from her mom's custody files. Inside were photos of bruises Jeffrey had denied, ones he claimed were bike accidents. Patricia submitted it as evidence in Elise's pending restraining order. It stunned the courtroom. Suddenly, Elise's shaky voice had visual proof. The dots kept connecting. I felt pride not in his downfall, but in our collective bravery. Together, we weren't just victims. We were undeniable. One morning, Ruth handed me a letter. It was from my mom. She apologized not just for leaving, but for believing Jeffrey. I failed you, she wrote. I let fear guide me. I didn't cry, I didn't forgive, but I felt less invisible. Her words were late, but they were hers. I kept the letter in the back of my journal. Proof that even those who abandoned us could sometimes find their voice again. Just like we had. At school, my history teacher invited me to speak during health class. I panicked, but then Elise texted, you've already changed lives, don't stop now. So I said yes. I shared my story briefly, carefully. A boy in the back wiped tears when I mentioned shame. Afterward, a teacher pulled me aside. My niece went through something similar. She whispered, we weren't alone. Not anymore. Abuse hides in silence. But every time we speak, it loses a little more ground. Thomas started a weekend workshop for survivors and allies. He invited me to co-lead. At first, I doubted myself. What could a teenager offer? But each session, I watched as others opened up. We painted, journaled, even shouted in safe rooms. Expression became survival. At the end of one session, a girl whispered, you helped me see I wasn't broken. I smiled, tears forming. Maybe healing wasn't about forgetting pain. Maybe it was about building something new beside it. During a support group, a new face appeared, Lana. Her eyes darted, her hands shook. She listened, didn't speak, but a week later, she emailed me, I'm ready to talk. Her story mirrored mine, different man, same control. We met at Ruth's. She read from her journal, voice cracking. I listened, held space, didn't interrupt. When she finished, she said, that felt like air. I nodded. Sharing didn't erase pain, but it broke the chains of silence. Breath by breath, news came fast. Jeffrey's brother was convicted of conspiracy and intimidation. He wouldn't see sunlight for years. Jeffrey's appeal was denied officially. I didn't cheer. I sat with Thomas and Alexander in the backyard, passing lemonade and watching fireflies. It's over, Alexander whispered, but I knew it wasn't really over. Not for all of us. Still, justice tasted like calm that night. And peace wasn't some distant fantasy. It was 3 survivors laughing under fairy lights, unafraid. I started mentoring younger girls at a nearby shelter. One, Nina, wouldn't make eye contact at first. But after I shared my journal, she asked for her own. We decorated it with stickers and glitter. A week later, she handed me a page, My Voice Matters. I nearly cried. I didn't need headlines or courtroom victories. I needed that moment, proof that survival can ripple outward, changing others. Trauma left marks, but so did love, courage, and glitter, covered hope. During therapy, my counselor asked what forgiveness meant to me. I paused, not letting him live in my head rent-free, I said. She smiled. That night, I took Jeffrey's old photo from my drawer and burned it. Not out of hatred but release. The flames danced, erasing his smirk. It didn't undo the past, but it loosened its grip. I kept the ashes in a jar labeled, not mine to carry. That felt like the truest forgiveness I'd ever known. Elise, Alexander, and I were invited to speak on a panel called Survivors Leading Change. We stood side by side, microphones trembling in our hands. We aren't cautionary tales, Elise said. We're blueprints for survival, I added. The audience stood, clapping, some crying. Afterward, a woman hugged me, saying her daughter had found hope in our words. That night, as we walked offstage, I looked at the others and smiled. We didn't just escape, we rebuilt, louder than ever. There are still nights when shadows stretch too long, and sounds feel too loud, but I breathe through them. I grip my journal, not to hide, but to remember. It holds proof. I spoke, I survived, I changed. Thomas often says healing isn't linear. He's right, but it's mine, every messy, beautiful inch of it. Sometimes I reread my first entry, just the word help. Now, I write words like power, truth, and hope. My story didn't end in fear, it restarted in fire. Alexander painted a mural on Thomas's shed. 3 figures standing tall, with journals in hand and stars overhead. She called it the Unmuted. I stared at it for hours. It wasn't about me alone. It was about Elise, about Lana, about Nina. About every kid still whispering instead of screaming. We were once those kids, now we were color and canvas. When I asked Alexander what inspired her, she shrugged. You did. That simple, that vast, my voice once shook. Now it echoes, on walls, in hearts, everywhere. Jeffrey now serves a 25-year sentence, no parole, no headlines anymore. His name fades while ours grow. Patricia Chen started a legal reform initiative. Thomas teaches boundary workshops. Nathaniel oversees a survivor advocacy unit. As for me, I tutor, I write, I speak. My story is no longer a wound, it's a weapon. And every girl who hears it knows, silence isn't the end. It's the start of something louder, something unstoppable, something like us. Thomas's house is now a safe space, literally. He converted his basement into a storytelling lounge. Every Friday, survivors gather, sip cocoa, and speak. No pressure, just space. I sit in the corner sometimes, notebook open, just listening. The words shared aren't always polished, but they're real. They're raw, and that's power. I used to dream of rescue. Now I help build it, for others, for me. For the voices still waiting to be heard.